Good evening, guys. How are you doing? Sorry for the slight delay starting, just letting a few people come on that aren't quite on yet. I've had a few messages, so just wait for those. Okay, we've started with the question from Victoria. Hi, I logged in too late last week. Yes, they are going to be available on the Shop Beautiful YouTube, I believe, shortly afterwards, but I'm not sure when and where they will get uploaded. So I will keep you posted if you want to keep a follow on that on social. That would be really good. So yeah, thank you for joining me this evening. I've been to the hairdressers this afternoon, so I don't always walk around like this, so that's why it's looking all pretty glam. Quite chuffed with it today. So thank you for joining me this evening. You're going to be with me for the next 45 minutes to an hour, and we're covering this evening the Stratum Granulosum. So this is series 3 of the skin science that we have created as part of Shop Beautiful. It's great revision for me. Still learning stuff when I do this, even when I start to reread over skin. I think I know what I know, but every day's a school day. That's something that I say quite often, and it is the truth. Okay. So yeah, we're going to have a good evening. I hope you've got yourself a drink and some refreshments, and we'll just work our way through this together. Please don't forget to share and tag us in that you are attending this evening as well, out on social, just to help create awareness around this program that we are running. So you're probably here because you are a fellow skin geek, a bit like myself. I'll literally explain myself a little bit more as we go on, but I absolutely love everything that there is to love about skin. The results that I get every day is a school day in terms of obviously clients that are coming through the door and the results that we get. We know this. There's no one size fits all. We need to obviously amend how we treat our clients accordingly for their skin health and skin type. So that's why I created and wanted to create with the Shop Beautiful guys these webinars, because albeit we have all these products and the brands come to us and say they promise this and it does this and it does that and the other, which is great. But what we need to be doing is having a little look around the science of the skin, so we understand, the ingredients and the effect that that's going to have. And that's from this, what we want to lead off it is obviously an explanation around ingredients and things like that. The guys at Shop Beautiful know that my training, I don't like to make too branded. There are brands that I use and I am naturally going to come across as passionate about them. But I am here more than anything to help educate you guys. And again, I learn with my clients, so I'm just here to pass that on to you on the results that I've had. So what we're going to be covering is, as always, a refresh and a revision on the anatomy of the skin. We're going to understand implications of treatment within each layer. And that will come naturally as we learn the layers, as we go over the weeks as well. So that's that's just a process that we're going to come through. And what you will find is that sometimes it makes no sense. That happens to be quite often. But when you start to put things together, it will start to make sense. When you start to see certain conditions that come through the door, it will make sense about how, what, and where you are seeing something, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. You're going to discover confidence in your treatment options and product choices from the Shop Beautiful range. So they've got a huge range of products on their catalogue. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. Imagine how our clients feel when they're going into Superdrug or Boots and, heaven forbid, obviously buying the over-the-counter stuff, which we know is not going to have that much of an impact on the skin. So if we implement education in skin science, then the results that we get are always better. So it's about having awareness around all the brands and all the ingredients, all the products, and first and foremost, how the actual skin works in order to get us the results. So this is me. So who am I and who is she to tell me what we can and can't do? Well, I'm not. I'm here to share my experiences with products that I have used or my experience behind the skin. So my background is dentistry. I'm a dental therapist and dental hygienist. Before that, I was a dental nurse, and before that, I wanted to be a journalist, but I was a beauty therapist. So I've kind of worked my way through. When I became a dental clinician, I still kind of found that I had this love for skin. So that's something that I needed to discover and work with. I was lucky enough to obviously meet with the guys at Shop Beautiful and MedFX to enable to kind of bring to you guys what I think is sometimes missing, because when I was new to the industry, this is what I felt that needed to be covered to help me understand the process and things that was going on as well. I have my own skin and aesthetic clinic over in Wirksworth, Derbyshire, and that is literally getting out of control. I don't know if you guys have been busy since you've gone back, but it's absolutely manic, which is amazing. I'm so pleased. But obviously, you know, if you're not busy right now, that's not a bad thing. You've got all this time to work on things, and launch some new products and treatments potentially by the end of this with your newfound confidence as well. Okay. So as always, we're going to start with the foundations, and that is the functions of normal skin. So I will reiterate, normal skin that is functioning completely and utterly undamaged. You know, where is this skin? Have I ever seen this sort of skin? I think we're a bit of a struggle. You know, I take care of my skin, but I still have periods of time, in particular around obviously menopausal periods, where the skin is in poor condition. So how often is our skin in the optimum condition? We need to do everything that we can to encourage that. The skin is there to act as a mechanical barrier to prevent things that we don't want getting underneath the skin. And it's there as a chemical barrier as well. Something we're going to cover quite a lot tonight, and this is important in the first few layers of the skin. That's why we've covered it last week, the week before, and again this evening in a bit more detail. And that is fluid loss that occurs from underneath the skin and the effect that has on the skin. So it's a bit more interactive tonight. I want to get you thinking about it a little bit more. We're going to talk about transepidermal water loss. You'll sometimes see it as TEWL. I will admit, for a little while, I used to see it written and didn't have a clue what it was. So that's why I started to look into it and find out. And, you know, if that is the case, then you're here this evening and that's great. So we're going to be learning from it. Okay. Defense against microorganisms. Again, when the skin is functioning properly, this is going to happen. It's going to prevent that bacteriostatic activity underneath the skin. Okay. It's also going to work as an immunological barrier. It's its own endocrine organ. I'm currently studying a master's in, not skin science, in cosmetic medicine. See, I forget. That's where I'm at. And, you know, again, every day is a school day. And what I'm learning about the skin, about adipose, about fatty tissue is just unbelievable, the impact that has on our skin and our general health as well. So our skin is its own endocrine organ, and it is able to actually produce its own vitamin D under UV light. That's why we need a certain amount of UV, but we obviously still need to protect our skin as well. And that's what melanin does. So melanin is there to protect our skin against these ultraviolet, these damaging rays. And we're going to, again, cover that in a bit more detail as well. When we are hot, we sweat. When we are when we are cold, we shiver. It's going to be a good night, isn't it, tonight? We can feel that already. I'm not going to lie. Those of you that follow me on Facebook probably saw I was up at 4:45 putting tweaks to this webinar this morning. I am literally getting up earlier and earlier to get everything into my diary at the moment. So I do apologise if I get words a little bit mixed up today. It's a sensory organ as well. So obviously we have, you know, the nerves and the sensations within the skin that allows us to touch and feel and sense. So there's quite a lot going on, isn't there? So there's quite a lot of science to cover behind that. So what the first few weeks that we're going to be looking at is obviously the outside layers, and we're going to work our way in from there as well. So here we are. This week we're on the stratum granulosum, also known as the granular layer. It's a thin layer of cells within the epidermis, and it lies, as you can see on the picture, just here above the stratum spinosum, below the stratum corneum. And what we learned about last week was the lucidum on the soles and the palms of hands and feet. So the keratinocytes migrate from the underlying stratum spinosum. So the way I think about skin is, and the way I explain it to my clients, is it has its own metabolism. You know, it's like, you know, everybody's different. So we're all going to have a slightly different skin cell turnover. We have a guide, which is, you know, 28 days to 6 weeks as we age generally, but we have a metabolism within the skin. And if you layer the skin up in your mind, and obviously with pictures that we can see, then that's a great way of thinking about it. So the skin has its own metabolism. Something called there you can read it on, loricrin is synthesized, it's going to be a long night, I did warn you, in the stratum granulosum within these granules that we talked about last week, this keratohyalin. And this is involved in this keratin that holds the skin together, or the potentially dead skin cells together to provide that protection that we're talking about. So we hopefully know a little bit about keratin and how that works. But what we learned last week is that it's going to help keep moisture in and prevent moisture, obviously prevent moisture loss by keeping moisture in, and prevent things from getting in there that we don't want it to as well. And this is that lipid layer, which we're going to cover in quite detail this evening as well. Okay, so stratum granulosum. There's a bit of a video, I think, for this, but I'm going to turn the sound off because it annoys me, but we're just going to kind of talk through it. So stratum granulosum, I know quite often we see these kind of images of skin and we're kind of expected to think, right, okay, that's an animation of skin, so we understand how that works. I don't work like that. I like to see, when I was doing my aesthetic training, I was lucky enough to do cadaver, which is with dead bodies, and that sounds horrendous, but there is no better way to see anatomy than in a body that's been donated, you know, great, so we can really have a little look at what's going on, and that is amazing. So when I see things like this, I'm like, you know, this can really help people understand, because it helps me what is going on underneath the skin. So as you can see here, they're talking about the keratinocyte granules. These are there to help promote dehydration. So this, when we are these top layers of the skin, we are reliant on the fact that it is starting to become dehydrated. I know we want to keep the moisture in, but if we keep the moisture in, we're always going to have these dead skin cells at the top. They're not going to die off, are they? So we need to kind of increase that metabolism and speed things up to the top. We learned last week about the lamellar granules as well. So recap on that a little bit more as you go through, and that'll make sense about the enzymes and the proteins that we talked about last week. And it's all of this that's going on in these dead layers of the skin that promotes this desquamation, this shedding of the skin cells, which is incredible. We define these layers, these top layers, as dead skin, but there is so much going on, as we learned last week and this and the week before that as well. So yes, we do want to promote removal of dead skin cells, but not too much, because we know that is going to affect the integrity of the skin as well. So, oh, hang on, what's going on there? There we go, gremlins. We had this last night. I did a webinar on behalf of a skin cancer charity last night. It was amazing. We had the guy from Britain's Got Talent who won last year, and he was doing a show for us, but the glitches that we had, it was just unbelievable. I looked outside and there was a full moon. I think that's what it was, but there were so many things that went wrong. Hopefully it's not going to be the same this evening. So the keratinocytes of the stratum granulosum become more flattened. So when you look at microscopic images, or even if we look at these animations of the skin, you will see that when we get to the next layer down from the stratum corneum, we have quite flat, compressed cells, okay? And these cells are held together, and as you can see here, this keratinocyte granules that form in this area are a protein, and these are what help keep the keratin in place and prevent that moisture loss and encourage that enzyme production to help remove the cells as well. We learned about the lamellar bodies last week as well, so just recap on that, because again, you are going to find these within this stratum granulosum, and they are there. This lipid, we hear this quite often. We hear about the skin's natural moisturizing factor, which we're going to cover this evening. We hear about the lipid layer, and this is ultimately where it all forms. Not all of it, some of the oil, as we know, is producing that sebaceous oily gland that we have underneath, which we are going to cover when we get to that. But there's so much going on in these top layers as well. And that's why I wanted to uncover that and explore it with you guys as well. Oh, some more words. I've got to get my teeth in. Another thing today, I've had a fixed appliance for 6 months, and I've just had my brace off today. So it's been a day all about me today, bar emails and everything else that I've been doing. But yes, I think that might be why I can't get my words out properly at the moment. So I will apologise for that. So keratinocyte granules are the equivalent of a protein. So we all know what a protein is, hopefully. We know that proteins are, and amino acids are the building blocks of cells and life ultimately as well. So filaggrin is formed within the stratum granulosum, and that is, again, is something that we need to understand a little bit more about, and how and what and why it's working. So Filaggrin has two functions. It is going to kind of pack and align this keratin, these filaments that produce the matrix between these corneocytes, these dying and dead skin cells that holds them together. So you might see on some images, like a skin cell with a bit of a dash next to it, and a skin cell and a bit of a dash. This is what they're trying to kind of explain and show to us. So filaggrin is a source of free amino acid. If you don't know about amino acids, where have you been? We need to know and have and understand amino acids for both intrinsic health, systemic health, and of course the skin's health as well, be that in products that we are applying topically, injectables, and or peels and things like that. Amino acids are the building blocks. So the filaggrin is a source of free amino acids that are essential for the normal hydration and this barrier function of the stratum corneum, which we learned about in the first week. You will see it referred to as the natural moisturizing factors, the NMF. You may see products that promote NMF. Now it's hopefully starting to make a little bit of sense about why it says that. Lipid barrier, NMF, all these little buzzwords that you're going to see. Hopefully it's starting to make a bit more sense for you now. So I really want to spend some time this evening because there's only so much you can talk about the layers and what's going on, because there is only so much going on. And then we get to a point where I'm just kind of playing with cells and trying to tell you as much as I can about them, but then that gives me a headache. So I know it's going to give you a headache. We know what we need to know, and obviously if you want to discover a little bit more about that, the references are at the end of this, and you can always obviously read around that if you wanted to. You're more than welcome to. So let's talk about moisture loss for now. So we learned in the first week about the bricks and mortar composition of the stratum corneum. We've learned in the second and third week this week about this lipid barrier, this natural moisturization factor, and this cholesterol containing lipids that helps keep moisture in and prevent things that we don't want getting in the skin at the same time. So if we have this moisture loss, what's going to happen to the skin? So I think this is where we get a bit more interactive. Remember the first slide that I told you that we rely on normal skin and the skin's integrity for all of this to happen. So what I'm trying to get at here, and we know this already, hopefully, but when we start to lose moisture from the skin, we will lose some of the skin's integrity, and we will start to see that function and that structure of the skin drop. Okay, so you will start to see problems that will occur, and clients will start to look for solutions. In my clinic, primarily and predominantly, they come in with redness and dryness of the skin, aka rosacea. They may have spots and acne, they may come with pigmentation, or they may come with aging skin, or kind of everything all amalgamated together. So if we're providing solutions for that, we've actually got an answer for everything for our clients as well. So can anybody tell me in the chat any signs of moisture loss that they would consider a client coming in with? What sort of things we'll be looking for moisture loss? Let's see, give me a rest. There we go. Tight skin. Thank you, Sophia. Dehydrated. Yeah, keep going. Come on, guys. There must be more. Dry, flaky skin. Thank you, Michelle. 100%. Irritated and red. Yeah, absolutely. Reactive skin. Yep, definitely. So these are all the sort of things, signs of moisture loss. Even acne is one of them. So you're going to see my little list in a moment as well. Crisscross texture. Yeah, skin texture. That is definitely something that we need to be looking at. And with texture comes pores, and obviously open pores, and pores that we see. If you imagine the pore is a bit like a chimney. And I've described this to my clients before, and they look at me completely gone out, or they just click and they get it. I talk about the skin underneath as a fish tank. I talk about the pores like a chimney. They love it. They keep coming back. But you imagine, obviously, you've got this open pore, and we are secreting the skin's natural moisturizing factor right out of it. Not only that, obviously if the pore is quite a deep pore, and you can see, we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go through the levels of the skin, you're going to be getting that oil, that sebaceous oil that's coming out of that pore. We're going to get, bacteria in via this pore. And again, here we are, we need to provide solutions for that. So basically, signs of moisture loss, in my professional opinion, for what that's worth, anything goes. So oily skin, believe it or not, is predominantly a sign of dehydrated skin. So what's going to happen? Usually somebody with oily skin wants to strip that oil off. So they over exfoliate the skin, they over scrub the skin. I had a client today that used St. Ives scrub. I thought that was gone. No, she was using it. My skin is just so oily. Right, we'll stop the scrubs. Okay, we're going to learn about this, and we help them with the choice of products and things like that as well. So oily skin. If you've obviously not seen the previous webinars I did around acne and things like that, then all of this starts to make sense as well. So refresh yourself on those. Breakouts and spots. If we have no or little amount of free radical scavengers, which is something that's going to go around and take away all those cells that are causing problems. The likes of ascorbic acid is one of them, which is fantastic. So that's vitamin C. If we don't have that underneath the skin and we have a lack of hydration and hyaluronic acid, which again is a free radical scavenger that munches away the problem cells, then we're going to see a problem. We have that lack of luster and glow, a poor skin cell turnover, because if you imagine that metabolism, it's like when you haven't drank enough water, you don't function properly. Okay, so it's going to affect the skin as well to that effect. Lines and wrinkles we are going to see because of the denaturing process of the skin, which happens naturally, but again, it can be enhanced by intrinsic and extrinsic causes. Large open pores, which I've just talked about, and what you guys said exactly, your tightness, dryness, and the redness ultimately. So anything goes. Do you know what? I would dare say that the vast majority of clients that come with oily skin don't actually even have oily skin. Well, they do have oily skin, but their skin is dehydrated. They don't have oily skin. It is because it's dehydrated and there's something that they're not quite doing right. So we need to explore the pH and things like that, as we know. So the science of skin cell turnover and the role of hyaluronic acid and that intracellular moisture that we've learned about within these layers is so important. This area here is what we need to look after. This is where our DNA is. This is where all the good stuff happens. And what we need to encourage is regular skin cell turnover. But that's only going to happen if this area is happy and this area is happy. You've got that sandwich in the middle, which are your layers of the epidermis. If that isn't functioning properly, like we've learned on the first and I think the fifth slide, we're going to have a problem. Transepidermal moisture loss. I found this image. I can't remember what I searched for. I was like, perfect. So you imagine an apple. I think it's an apple. It looks like an apple to me. A manky apple, right? One that I'd probably find in the bottom of one of my handbags that I'd put in there and not eaten. Disgusting. So the transepidermal moisture loss, something very similar will happen to the skin. As we denature and age and we've not looked after said apple or said skin, we're going to start to have these hairline cracks and lines and pores and, open skin and areas that aren't functioning properly. So that lovely, juicy apple then proceeds to be one that you can see in the picture here. Okay, we learned last week about the lipid-rich lamellar bodies that form and secrete that lipid layer to prevent water loss. So hopefully it's making a bit more sense now. We're looking at apples. Hopefully, I do hope so. So transepidermal water loss. This is hydration that is lost by water content. You see why I talk about chimneys, right? You see why I talk about the pores and skin quality and skin's integrity, like condensation, like a chimney. Can you remember in GCSE, I think it was geography, and you learn weather and you learn about precipitation. I sound really clever when I talk about this, but I used to hate it and think, why do I even need to know this? But now we start to understand that high to low ratio, we can reflect on that again, and it all starts to make sense. So grab out the GCSE books if you've still got them. If some of you might not have done your GCSEs, but it all starts to make sense how and why they were banging on about it in geography. The role of epidermal moisture, what it's there for. Hopefully you've grasped this. The skin with a barrier intact, as you can see from the diagram here, is going to help keep those external irritants out because it's functioning properly. It's functioning as it should. With those external irritants or even something going on intrinsically, like your hormones and other things that we consider that have an intrinsic effect on the skin, we're going to lose moisture. And that's going to affect the skin's function, the integrity of the skin, and everything else that's going on. So it's so important that we start with the foundations. You know, my argument, not an argument, my opinion all the time, it's not an argument. My opinion isn't an argument. Why are clinicians and individuals placing dermal filler and products into areas that may be doing this already? That's my opinion. So we're going to start with the foundations. We're going to fix the skin. We're going to have a preventative heavy approach. We're going to get them on good home care. Otherwise, what is the point in that investment on anything else? Even peels, before you're even touching the skin, we need to get them on board and get them thinking about things that they can do themselves at home. Natural moisturizing factors. The role of the NMF, natural moisturizing factors, is to maintain adequate skin hydration. Adequate hydration of that first layer that we learned about in the first week, the stratum corneum, serves three major functions. It will maintain plasticity of the skin. By plasticity, we mean obviously that nice fluid movement. You mentioned tightness as a sign of dehydration. Exactly. We need to have that fluidity and that movement to the skin because without it, it's going to feel tight. It's going to feel horrible. Those individuals with eczema and psoriasis and obviously, you know, skin issues like that will always report that as one of the most damning symptoms that they have from it. And it's not nice. Another natural moisturizing factor function is that it allows these hydrolytic, so hydro meaning moisture, lytic enzymes to function in the process of desquamation. In English, we are allowing, with the right amount of natural moisturizing factors, the enzymes can work properly to help with the skin cell renewal. So we've talked about that metabolism. If we don't have the right NMFs, natural moisturizing factors, it is going to affect the skin's metabolism. It is going to affect the amount of new skin cells that we regenerate and the ones that we delaminate and lose and exfoliate as well. It contributes to optimum stratum corneum and barrier function. Okay, barrier function is really, really important. Natural moisturizing factors is a contribution to that, as is the sebaceous oily gland that we produce oil from, as is the lamellar bodies that we learned about last week as well. So what treatments would we consider at the moment for clear signs of moisture loss? Let me put this out to the room again and you guys can give me a break. So what treatments would we consider for clear signs of moisture loss? So those symptoms that you wrote in the chat for me, if you had clients coming in the door with that, where would you start? Let's have a little look. Oops. Lorraine, Sunnicos, you're just saying that because it's me doing the webinar. So Sunnicos is amazing, 100%, but I would start somewhere even before that. So Biorepeal and Sunnicos supplementation. I like where you're going, Kitty. Remove acids from daily skincare. We could do, Sophia. So skincare. Diet. Who said it? Skincare and diet. Home care. Thank you, Anne. Yes, we're going to start with home care and we're going to start with one product. We're going to start with an SPF. We're going to start with an SPF that has reparative qualities as well. That's what I always start with. Clients will use it. They will start to already get a solution to their concern and problem. And then we start to implement other products along the way. I know the guys at Shop Beautiful do have Helio Care training for free on there that you can obviously purchase at the checkout. If you haven't done it, then do it. There are other SPFs available and some protections out there, but get them. You know, the best SPF is one that they're going to use every day, once or twice a day. Okay, so that is so, so important to get in there. When it comes to professional treatments, what would I do for clear moisture loss? So I'd start with home care. I'd help with the pH of the skin. So get them off any soaps, get them off anything that's damaging and stripping their skin, and encourage good home care and regimen. And then only will I consider treating their acute concern for solution. So if they come with acne, I wouldn't treat the acne straight away. I'd start with home care and then we'd implement something like the peels, like somebody mentioned as well. Okay, so it's really, really important. You know, I'm probably teaching you to suck eggs here, but this is where we start with our clients and we reinforce that. We reinforce our opinion as skin experts that we are with the knowledge that we have as we're going through these things. Really, really important. So our barrier function, interfering with, so this is where it matters. So as soon as we start interfering with and altering any properties of the skin, it's going to weaken that barrier. So if the barrier is already weakened, and then we go in there all gung-ho and we're going to cause a bigger problem that we can fix, and it will, we know these things get worse before they get better. That's fine as well. But it's really important we communicate that with our clients 100%. But that's why I would say, look, you know what, we're going to implement home care. So this initial interference comes from them at home. So they start to comply, put products on, the skin gets worse before it gets better. You're not the sole person to blame. Well, you are, because you gave them the product. However, they start to then see it turn around. And then any professional treatments that we do after that, the results speak for themselves. We also need to look at, and somebody mentioned diet and supplements, 100%. They are available on Shop Beautiful. Have a look at the protocol training. NutriCos have an amazing supplement. I take one of those every day. It tastes rank and you never get used to it. You just shut it down. It's about an education to our client, and that is so important to get them to think about what they're putting in, on and around their body as well, and those intrinsic and extrinsic considerations that are going to denature the skin and these layers of the skin that serve such a purpose. The amount of clients that I see that are over exfoliating. Oh no, I just wear my SPF on a sunny day. I walk the dogs 3 times a day. They're on the field in the middle of the moors, but you're not putting any SPF on, and you wonder why that we've lost that integrity to the skin. Masks, frictional issues that we see. I'm seeing it more and more just now. They get spots because they're wearing a mask. They then start to proceed and strip their skin because they think that that's the thing to do, and squeeze the spots and mess around with the spots. And then that has that counteract on the skin's integrity as well. Okay. Homeostasis, meaning when everything is in equilibrium and doing what it needs to do. Stratum corneum and its adjacent layers that we've learned about over the last 3 weeks maintain their homeostasis. The homeostasis means we've got a perfect metabolism. That renewal and replacement of exfoliated skin cells happens in a perfect way. And that's only going to happen by a series of well-balanced events that we've not interfered with, that the external environment's not interfered with what they're eating and drinking hasn't interfered with. But realistically, when is that ever going to happen? Like a baby, probably. So, we need to make sure that we're realistic with it, but we're also educating the client that these are the changes that you can make before we even touch and do anything to your skin. So the proliferation, so that's your new skin cells that are coming through that are being made, and that differentiation involving the synthesis of our lipid lamellar bodies that we learned about last week as well. Barrier repair, as the skin's barrier, so this is constantly exposed to changing environment stresses, some of which we can control. I think I'm going to ask you that question in a minute. So start with home care and prevention over invasive treatment. So I liked your trail of thought there, Lorraine, in terms of Sunnicos, but I would start even more basic with obviously the home care and the education side of things as well. We fix the foundations, okay? We need to get that right, and then anything else that we do afterwards is going to work even better. Trust me. It does. And I know it's hard to build compliance with your clients. You don't want to go in all, again, gung-ho and give them 15 products to go home with. Affordability is one, budget is one as well. But what's great about Shop Beautiful is you've got an armful, or more than an armful, lots of brands to work your way through and understand a bit more about, and find one that suits your client's budget, that they're going to comply with, that they're going to utilize and use and get the results as well. The skin has many barrier properties. The 2 most important are creating a barrier against the movement of water and these electrolytes that keep the skin healthy, and a permeability barrier that creates a barrier against the entry of microorganisms. So all of this goes on in those dead skin layers, those first 2-3 skin layers that are ultimately dead. So you can see why it was important to obviously spend some time to discover a little bit more about them before we move on to the good stuff. I don't know how the other webinars are going to go because there's a lot to get in them. So we shall see how that goes. But obviously, as we start to move our way down into the other layers of the skin, we're going to have more skin cells to talk about and more things that are going on. So that's going to give Annette a lot more to talk about, believe it or not. What factors can we control when it comes to moisture loss and upholding the integrity of these outer layers that we've learned about? So you tell me now, what factors can we control when it comes to moisture loss? And I've given you some of these already this evening. What factors can we control? So think about intrinsic, extrinsic aspects. Let's have a look what we've got coming through. UV, 100%, Victoria, well done. Wearing SPF, yeah, so that's UV light. So that's one of them. That's a factor that we can control to a certain degree. What else? What about what they're using on their skin? Blue light, yes, there is increasing evidence behind blue lights from your laptops, your phones. What's the first thing we do in the morning when we've got nothing on our skin? We pick up a phone and we have it in our face. Hydration, yeah, 100%. That's another one that we can implement. That is a factor that we can control. We can control what we're putting in and on our bodies. We can control where we are and what we're doing, and any chemicals that we are using and or working with. We can ensure that we are protecting the skin with products, of course. We can try to implement a better pH of the skin, and we're going to do that with products, of course, as well. Non-smoking, hydration, yeah, there's some good ones coming through there. That's a really interesting one, Victoria. I can see you've obviously been reading around it. Blue light can still penetrate through our skin 6 hours after we put our devices down. Okay. So blue light can still penetrate through our skin 6 hours after. So what sort of things would you think to implement into your skincare regimen that is going to help fight against the damage caused by the likes of blue light and all these things that we've talked about? That, you know, an element of it is going to happen, but what can we put in and on our skin that's going to help afterwards and over time? Anybody? So anybody? Antioxidants. Thank you, Lorraine. You've literally took the word right out of my mouth. So yes, antioxidants. So oxidative stress is what happens when our skin has something going on that it doesn't like, which is where obviously we lose integrity of the skin. So a UV ray, for an example, or the blue light that we've just been talking about, will create reactive oxidative stress underneath the skin. So what an antioxidant will do, and an anti-free radical, an antioxidant, anti-free radical, is going to help munch away like Pac-Man at these cells that have caused a problem. So a free radical is basically a cell that has gone pretty radical underneath and done its own thing. Okay, but like Wayne's World. Can anyone remember that? I can't believe I just said that. But a free radical is underneath the skin, doing what it shouldn't be doing. And what it tends to do is it goes around. So say, imagine a free radical like a star with 5 sides to it. One side's missing because it's been damaged by whatever. Okay. It's then going to go around trying to pinch off the other cells to create itself 5 again. But then you've got the other cells that are going around with the 4 and the 5, and that's why we start to build up those free radicals and start to see damage occur underneath the skin. So your antioxidants, both systemically and within your skincare, are going to have an impact as well. Okay, so where are we? Functions of normal skin. There's quite a lot to think about when we want the skin to function properly, right? We've got a lot we can be talking to our clients about now, haven't we? Just that very first 2 or 3 layers that they can look after at home before we even think about touching anything else. And hopefully you've taken at least that from this evening as well. Prevention is key. So get on there and do the Helio Care training. It is free. There are other SPFs out there. One that I like is a dermo corrective one. I think there's a dermaceutic one that is on the Shop Beautiful website. Again, there will be a blog to follow from this. I'll probably have to do it about 2 in the morning at some point. There will be a blog to follow, and I will obviously talk a little bit more around brands and just kind of guide you towards that as well. But that's just my opinion. You need to try them yourself. Interesting one, I ask it most weeks, so most of you should know the answer by now. But any newbies, what percentage of skin aging is preventable? Anybody know? Get it in there first. Percentage of skincare that is skin aging that is preventable is around about 90%. Okay, and that changes a little bit. It's usually around about 90%. Well done, Michelle, you got that right. That's perfect. And that's insane, right? 90% of skin damage and problems that are occurring have been and are preventable. So in my head, all the clients that I'm seeing now that I'm educating to this, and we're getting them in good regimen and everything's functioning as it should, in 30 years, 40 years time, they're not going to need Botox. They're not going to need, yes, we're going to naturally denature as we age, but if we've prevented that initial damage, the skin that we're going to have is going to be in a lot better condition, in my opinion, but we'll see about that. There are other obviously aspects that are out of our control as well. Prevention to protect and education to help eliminate. And this is something that I use quite often. I use it each webinar because we are preventing to protect the skin and we're educating to eliminate further damage and problems and help with their initial solution that they came with. So what you can be doing now to correct is you're going to learn from these webinars and you're going to help reiterate that and teach your clients about it. So a bit of a challenge if you want to this evening, do a post on social media about something that you've learned over the last 3 weeks and reflect on it again if you need to, about the layers of the skin, these initial layers that the client can look after at home, the layers that they can, pretty much see, that outer layer of the skin. What can they do to take care of it? So you can all go and do a post around that this evening. You could even think about the products and the procedures and the treatment that you're going to do. And obviously tag the guys in from Shop Beautiful and me if you want to. I always love to see things and how it grows. And your clients will appreciate the fact that you are helping to educate them as well. They might find it a bit odd at first if all you ever put on there is before and after pictures of your, really good work and results that you've had. The educational content posts are key, in my opinion. Sunscreen and repair, I've talked about that and I will continue to talk about that until the day I die. I am an ambassador for Skin, which is a skin cancer charity. If you are not following them already, please go on and do that just now. They have an online accreditation to help you discover and detect skin cancer and melanoma early. And by that, I mean you are armed with the tools, not to diagnose, but to spot something that doesn't quite look right. And we are in a unique position working with the skin to do just that. I have at least one, if not two a week that I'm picking up on that I probably wouldn't be if I'd not done this training. So it's definitely worthwhile looking into. Okay, anybody that's done it, pop in the chat and tell others what you thought of it, because it is an incredible tool to have. There is going to be a blog to follow this, guys. So I do hope you've enjoyed this evening. And I'm running a little bit on empty after a very, very early morning start. But I do hope that you've taken something out of this and it has been beneficial for you. Check out the blog that will be in there in a few days' time. Again, shout out to Shop Beautiful for kind of sponsoring this and letting me put this content together. I literally am a proper skin geek and love putting it together for you all, and it's a great refresher for me and all of us really to be doing this as well. So I'll open to any questions that anybody might have. I'll try and answer them. If I don't know, I'll just pretend that I do. No, I won't. I'll find out the answer for you. But there is my email there if anybody has to get off and they can't quite. Let's have a look. So we've got Joanne. Hello, Joanne. I'm a registered nurse and looking to retrain in aesthetics. Do you recommend going straight to little courses such as skins, peels, micro, or doing a level 3 in beauty first? Joanne, I think obviously we need to have a little bit of chat. If you wanted to get in touch with me, drop that on the email, but there are certain routes that you'll need to go through in terms of getting insurance and things like that. So let's have a little chat and we can get a plan in place for you. That would be great to hear from you, Joanne, so please do reach out. Victoria Watkinson has said vertical lines. I don't know what you mean, Victoria. If you want to expand on that, I can try and answer it, but you've just written vertical lines. I don't know if you were answering one of the questions. You probably were when I asked about what causes, what we see in terms of skin. But yeah, absolutely, vertical lines that we will see, lines on the skin, static lines that are formed because of the skin that's been degraded. So I hope you've all enjoyed this evening. Thank you, Sophie. You said it's been awesome. I'm sure there's lots and lots of other fun things that you can be doing in this evening, but you've spared an hour with me to hopefully pick up something new that you can utilise within the next few weeks. But do pop it on social and share it. I can't wait to see it. And best of luck for the next week ahead. Think about skin as its own organ. We know that's what it is, but it is a very complex organ. And if we start with the basics, we're always going to get it right. And we're not always going to get it right, actually. A lot of it is down to education and learning and experience with products and with utilising things as well. Obviously, always working to how we feel confident and competent in doing so. So I'm going to sign off. I have still not finished and I've still got some assignments to do later on this evening. So I'm going to crack on and do that. But I look forward to seeing some of you, all of you, hopefully next week on the next layer that we're going to work our way down to. And we're going to be covering it in a little bit more detail and another refresher on the skin. So have a lovely evening, guys. Take care and I will see you all very soon. Good night. Just ourselves, I could use some help getting out of this conversation. No one's done it yet. Don't ask that question again.